A millionaire fell in love with a homeless man while walking down an alley. Everyone doubted it, but when she discovered his secret, on that autumn afternoon, Amelia Hamilton, a renowned millionaire architect, walked through the alleys and backstreets of a rundown area of Los Angeles. She was there for field research, part of an ambitious urban revitalization project. Her expensive leather shoes sank into the mud, standing in absurd contrast to the surrounding environment. However, her eyes were not focused on the dirt or the graffiti-covered walls, but on the people living there, their stories etched in every wrinkle of worry and hope. As Amelia took notes in an elegant leather notebook, a soft sound of music caught her attention. Following the sound, she came across a small makeshift shelter made of wooden scraps and old blankets. Inside, a disheveled man was strumming a worn-out guitar, his melancholic notes echoing through the alley. "Beautiful music," said Amelia, breaking the silence. The man looked up, revealing a pair of piercing blue eyes that contrasted with his unshaven face and worn clothes. He was Jack, and despite his unkempt appearance, there was an undeniable dignity in his posture. "Thank you," Jack replied without stopping his playing. "Music is one of the few things I still can call my own." Intrigued, Amelia moved closer. "What happened to you? How did you end up here?" Jack sighed, his hand still skillfully moving across the guitar strings. "It's a long story, but to summarize, I was the victim of a financial scam. I lost everything, but I'm here surviving, trying to find a way to get back on my feet." Feeling an inexplicable connection, Amelia sat down next to him. "I'm Amelia. I'm working on a project to revitalize this area. I want to understand better the lives of the people living here." Jack looked at her with curiosity. "And what will you do with that understanding?" "I hope it will help create real solutions to real problems," Amelia said sincerely. Jack smiled for the first time, a sad but hopeful smile. "Well, if you want to listen, I have many stories to tell." And so on that gray day, an unlikely connection began to form between the millionaire architect and the man who had lost everything. A connection that promised to transform not only the neighborhood, but also their lives in ways neither could foresee. Amelia couldn't get Jack out of her mind. That night, while sitting in her luxurious penthouse, the melancholic notes of his guitar and the depth of his gaze haunted her. She could barely wait for their next meeting. The next morning, Amelia decided to return to that alley. Her steps echoed through the streets of Los Angeles until she finally spotted Jack's makeshift shelter. He was there as expected, but this time he wasn't playing the guitar. He was sitting with an old book in his hands, his expression focused. "Good morning, Jack," Amelia said with a warm smile. Jack looked up from the book and returned the smile. "Good morning, Amelia. I didn't expect to see you so soon. I was curious to know more about you," she admitted, sitting next to him. Jack carefully closed the book and set it aside. "And what would you like to know? You mentioned a financial scam. How did that happen?" Amelia asked, her voice soft but filled with genuine interest. Jack took a deep breath, looking at the gray clouds in the sky. "I had a tech company. We were growing fast, everything seemed perfect. Then, a group of investors appeared. They had an expansion plan that seemed foolproof. I fell for their talk and invested everything. Within a few months, they disappeared with all the money. I was left with nothing, and the banks took the rest." Amelia felt a pang in her heart. Jack's story was painful, but he told it with a resigned calm. "And now? How do you manage to cope with all this?" Jack smiled, a smile full of sadness but also with unshakable strength. "Life dealt me a hard blow, but I won't give up. I have a plan to recover what I lost and expose those who betrayed me." Jack's response ignited something in Amelia. There was a determination in him that was contagious. "I'd like to hear more about this plan," she said, leaning in a bit closer. Jack nodded slowly. "All right, but first I want to know why this is so important to you. What makes you come back here to this place day after day?" Amelia pondered the question for a moment. "Maybe because I see something in you that reminds me of myself. The strength to keep going even when everything seems lost. And because I believe that together we can make a difference." Jack looked deeply into Amelia's eyes, as if trying to unravel her deepest secrets. "Then let's begin," he finally said. "I'll tell you my plan, and you help me make it a reality." Days passed, and Amelia found herself increasingly fascinated by Jack. Not only by his audacious plan but also by the depth of his stories, by the life he led on the streets of Los Angeles. Each encounter was a revelation, a journey through the eyes of someone who had lost everything but still held onto a flame of hope. On a particularly cold afternoon, Amelia arrived at Jack's shelter bringing hot coffee. He welcomed her with a grateful smile, and they sat on the concrete floor, the steam from the coffee rising in the cold air. "You seem to always be on the move," Amelia commented, observing Jack's face as he sipped the coffee. Jack nodded, looking at the horizon. "Life on the streets is like that. There's never a moment of true peace. There's always something to worry about. Where to get the next meal, where to find a safe place to sleep." Amelia leaned forward, her genuine interest reflected in her eyes. "Tell me more about it. What's it like living here day after day?" Jack sighed, thinking for a moment before starting. "The first thing you learn is to never fully trust anyone. There are good people, but there are also many who want to take advantage of you. You have to always be vigilant." He paused, his eyes losing themselves in painful memories. "I met a man named Rick when I first ended up on the streets. He seemed friendly, helped me find food and a place to sleep. But on the first night, he stole the little money I had left. It was a hard lesson to learn." Amelia felt a knot form in her throat. "That must have been terrible." "It was," Jack agreed, "but it also made me stronger. I learned to be more careful, to observe people, to understand their intentions before trusting them." He looked at Amelia, a glint of determination in his eyes. "But I also met incredible people. Like Sarah, a woman who lost her home after her husband died of cancer. She taught me how to find resources to make the most of what the city offers. And there's Mike, a war veteran who suffers from PTSD. He taught me survival techniques, how to stay warm in winter, and where to find safe shelters." Amelia felt touched by Jack's stories. "You found a kind of family on the streets." Jack smiled sadly. "Yes, something like that. But it's a fragile family, you know? People come and go. Some manage to get out of this life, others aren't so lucky." Amelia placed her hand over his, offering comfort. "And you, Jack? What do you want for the future?" He looked at his hands, his words carrying hope and pain. "I want to recover what I lost. I want justice, yes. But more than that, I want a place where I can feel safe, where I can rebuild my life. And I want to help those who are still here, like Sarah and Mike, find a way out of this situation." As the weeks passed, Amelia and Jack met regularly, always at the same meeting point, among the forgotten alleys of the city. Their relationship, born from an initial curiosity, began to transform into something deeper. On a cold December night, they were sitting together, wrapped in blankets that Amelia had brought. The wind blew cold, but their conversation warmed the atmosphere. "Have you ever thought about what your life would be like if you hadn't lost everything?" Amelia asked, her soft voice almost lost in the distant sound of traffic. Jack reflected for a moment, his eyes fixed on the horizon. "Many times," he admitted. "I would have continued to expand my company, maybe even open branches in other cities. But you know, after everything I went through, I realized that there's more to life than financial success." Amelia smiled, feeling an increasing connection with Jack. "And what did you discover?" "I discovered that true wealth is in the people you meet and the connections you make," Jack replied. "Like you, for example. I never thought someone like you would care about someone like me." "Someone like me?" Amelia laughed softly. "We're more alike than you think, Jack. I've had my struggles and losses too. Maybe not in the same way, but we all have our battles." Jack looked at her, admiring her strength and vulnerability. "I think that's what makes us human, isn't it? Our struggles, our stories." Amelia nodded, touched by Jack's words. "You've taught me a lot about resilience, Jack. About never giving up, no matter how hard it gets." Jack smiled, a smile that lit up his tired face. And you've given me hope, Amelia. Something I thought I had lost forever." That night, as the stars began to appear in the sky, Amelia and Jack shared more of their lives, their dreams and their hopes. They laughed together, got emotional together, and above all, connected on a deep and meaningful level. In a moment of silence, Jack took Amelia's hand and looked into her eyes. "Amelia, I want you to know that no matter what happens, I'm grateful to have met you. You brought light to my darkness." She gently squeezed his hand. "And you, Jack, showed me what really matters. Let's keep moving forward together, step by step, until we realize your plans." It was a cold and quiet night. The city lights shone distantly, creating an almost surreal contrast with the small improvised refuge where Jack and Amelia gathered. She had brought a bottle of cheap wine and 2 plastic cups. They sat on the floor, close enough to warm each other with their presence. "Jack, we never talked much about your past," said Amelia, pouring the wine into the cups. "You mentioned a financial scam. How did that happen?" Jack took the cup offered by Amelia, his fingers brushing against hers for a brief moment. He sighed, looking at the red liquid as if seeking courage in its depths. "It's a long and painful story," he began, his voice low and filled with emotion. Amelia leaned in closer, her eyes fixed on him, encouraging him to continue. "I was the CEO of a tech startup," said Jack, swirling the wine in his cup. "We were growing rapidly. Our product was revolutionizing the market, and everything seemed perfect. I had an incredible team, people I trusted completely." He paused, his eyes lost in distant memories. Then the investors came. They seemed legitimate, with an impeccable track record. They promised to expand our company to levels I never imagined. I was so caught up in the idea of success that I didn't see the red flags. "What kind of red flags?" Amelia asked softly. "Small inconsistencies, grand promises without concrete details. But I was blinded by the dream of turning the company into something monumental," Jack continued, the pain evident in his voice. "I signed contracts, invested everything I had. Within months, the money vanished. They evaporated, leaving me with immense debts and a devastated team." Amelia felt a knot form in her throat. "That's horrible, Jack. What did you do after that?" "I lost everything," he said with a bitter smile. "My house, my car, my friends. Some blamed me, others simply disappeared. I was sued by the remaining investors, and every penny I had went to pay lawyers. I ended up on the streets trying to piece my life back together." She reached out and touched his hand. "You didn't deserve that. No one does." "Thank you, Amelia," he said, squeezing her hand. "But it's not just about what I lost. It's about what I learned. I realized that life is more than money and success. And even on the streets, there are valuable lessons. Survival, resilience, true friendship." Amelia looked at him, admiring his strength. "You're much stronger than you think, Jack. And now, with your recovery plan, we'll show those scammers they messed with the wrong person." Jack smiled for the first time in a long time, a smile full of hope and determination. "Yes, we will. With you by my side, I feel like anything is possible." The full moon illuminated the cold night as Jack and Amelia sat on a bench in an almost deserted park. The distant sound of urban traffic was muffled by the whisper of the trees in the wind. Jack took a thick envelope from his coat pocket and handed it to Amelia, who opened it carefully. Inside, there were pages upon pages of notes, graphs, and documents. "This is my plan," said Jack, watching Amelia's reactions as she flipped through the papers. "Years of work and research. Every move by the scammers, every suspicious transaction. I compiled everything." Amelia looked up at him, impressed. "This is impressive, Jack. You did all this on your own." Jack nodded, a shy smile on his face. "Yes. I spent nights in public libraries, used computers at community centers. I learned to be an amateur detective." "Tell me more about the plan," Amelia asked, intrigued. Jack leaned forward, his eyes shining with determination. "First, we need to trace the funds that disappeared. The scammers used a complex network of shell companies to launder the money. Here," he pointed to a detailed diagram, are the main players involved. We identified their weak points. Amelia examined the diagram. So we need concrete evidence. Something we can take to the authorities. Exactly, said Jack. And that's where you come in. With your resources and connections, we can gain access to information that's out of my reach. We need lawyers, financial fraud experts, and maybe even some ethical hackers. Amelia frowned, thoughtful. I know some people who can help, but we need to be extremely careful. These scammers won't stand still while we try to expose them. I know, Jack replied, the gravity of the situation clear in his voice. That's why every step must be meticulously planned. Let's start with the shell companies. We need documents that prove they were used to launder money. Amelia agreed. I can contact some well-known lawyers. They can help us obtain search warrants and other legal authorizations. Jack smiled, a smile full of hope and determination. Combining our resources, we have a real chance to bring down these criminals. Amelia closed the envelope and looked at Jack, feeling a deep connection and growing trust. Let's do this. Together. As the night wore on, they continued to discuss the details of the plan, outlining each step with precision and care. The cold of the night seemed less intense in the face of the determination burning in both of them. Jack took Amelia's hand and squeezed it gently. Thank you for believing in me, Amelia. I couldn't do this without you. She smiled and squeezed his hand back. No need to thank me, Jack. We're in this together. Let's bring justice and reclaim your life. Amelia and Jack were sitting in a small cafe downtown. The walls were decorated with black and white photographs of a bygone Los Angeles, creating a nostalgic and welcoming atmosphere. Amelia nervously stirred the spoon in her cappuccino while Jack watched the street's movement through the window. Jack, what if this doesn't work? Amelia finally broke the silence. What if they are more powerful than we think? Jack took a deep breath, diverting his gaze from the window to Amelia. I have my doubts too, Amelia. It haunts me every night. But we have to try. I can't keep living like this, knowing those men are getting away with it. She nodded slowly, but the worry still marked her face. And if something goes wrong? What if they come after us? Jack held her hand across the table, his blue eyes filled with determination. We'll be careful. We'll take all possible precautions. And if something goes wrong, we'll face it together. Amelia looked at him, finding comfort in his firmness. I trust you, Jack. I just don't want anything bad to happen to you. Jack smiled, squeezing her hand. I don't want you to get hurt either, Amelia. We need to be united in this. If we're careful, we can make this work. Suddenly, Amelia's phone vibrated. She looked at the screen and frowned. It's a message from an unknown number. She opened the message, and her eyes widened as she read its contents. They know. Someone is monitoring us, Jack. He leaned in to see the message, his face hardening. Damn, we need to be even more careful. Maybe we should change our communication methods. Amelia agreed, still processing the shock. What if it's someone close to us? Someone we trust? Jack thought for a moment, then responded firmly. It's possible. We need to be selective about who we involve from now on. And maybe it's time for a loyalty test. Amelia's eyes narrowed. What do you have in mind? We'll give different information to each person and see what leaks, said Jack. That way, we'll find out who's betraying us. Amelia agreed, her resolve hardening. All right, let's do it. And in the meantime, let's keep all crucial information between the two of us. As they finished their coffees, the tension in the air was palpable, but there was also a tacit understanding that they were ready for anything. They knew the road ahead would be full of challenges, but they were determined to face each one together. As they left the cafe, Jack put an arm around Amelia. We'll make it, Amelia. We've come this far. We can't give up now. She smiled at him, feeling a new wave of courage. I'm with you, Jack. Until the end. The sun rose lazily over Los Angeles, casting a golden glow on the still quiet streets. Amelia and Jack met early that day, determined to take the first concrete step in their plan. They knew each move would be crucial, and the margin for error was minimal. Sitting at a small table on a cafe terrace, Amelia opened her laptop and began typing furiously. "I managed to schedule a meeting with a lawyer I trust," she said, looking at Jack. "He has experience with financial fraud and can help us get the documents we need." Jack nodded, feeling a mix of anxiety and hope. "That's a great start. Meanwhile, I'll talk to some old contacts who might provide additional information on the shell companies." Amelia looked at him with a serious expression. "We need to be extremely careful. We can't leave any traces that might alert the scammers." "I know," Jack replied. "Every step must be calculated. We'll communicate only through secure channels and meet in different places to avoid suspicion." Later that same day, Jack met with an old friend, Mark, who worked as a private investigator. They met in a park away from prying eyes. Mark, a middle-aged man with keen eyes and a tired smile, listened attentively as Jack explained the situation. "It's a risky mission," said Mark, scratching his chin. "But I have some contacts who can provide the information you need. It'll be expensive, but if you're willing to take the risk, I can help." Jack nodded with determination. "We're willing to pay the price. We just need the evidence to expose these criminals." Meanwhile, Amelia was in a luxurious downtown office, talking to the lawyer she had mentioned. He, an elegant and articulate man named David, was reviewing the documents Amelia had brought. "This is a complicated case," said David, adjusting his glasses. "But I see potential here. With the right evidence, we can build a solid case. I'll need access to financial records and maybe even some witnesses." Amelia agreed. "Jack is working on that. We'll do whatever it takes to expose these scammers." In the following days, Amelia and Jack worked tirelessly. Jack managed to gather important documents with Mark's help, including suspicious transactions and records linking the scammers to the shell companies. Amelia, in turn, got David to start processing the information, laying the groundwork for legal action. One night, exhausted but determined, Amelia and Jack met in a small restaurant. They sat at a table in the back, away from everyone's view. "We've got the first pieces of the puzzle," said Jack, placing a folder full of documents on the table. "This is just the beginning, but we already have enough material to start putting pressure on the involved parties." Amelia opened the folder and examined the documents, feeling a mix of relief and excitement. "We're closer than ever, Jack. But we need to stay calm and continue cautiously. We can't afford any mistakes now." Jack agreed, his eyes shining with fierce determination. "We'll make it, Amelia. We're stronger together. And now that we have these proofs, it's only a matter of time before justice is served." Amelia held Jack's hand over the table, feeling his strength and determination flow into her. "We're in this together, Jack. Let's keep moving forward until the end." The sun was setting, coloring the Los Angeles sky with shades of orange and pink. Amelia and Jack were sitting on a bench in a quiet park, the noise of the city far enough away to create a bubble of calm around them. Jack had arranged an important meeting that night. He was about to reunite with some old allies who could be crucial to his plan. "Who are we waiting for?" Amelia asked, curiosity shining in her eyes. "Two old friends," Jack replied, checking his watch. "Tom and Lisa. We worked together at my company before everything fell apart. They're trustworthy people." A few minutes later, a tall man with gray hair and a woman with keen eyes and an easy smile approached. Jack stood up, greeting them warmly. "Tom, Lisa, thanks for coming." "Jack," said Tom, shaking his hand, "we were worried when you disappeared. It's good to see you're okay." Lisa nodded, hugging Jack. "We're here to help in any way we can. What do you need?" Amelia watched with interest as Jack explained the situation, detailing the financial scam and the plan to expose the culprits. Tom and Lisa listened attentively, their expressions growing more serious with each passing moment. "This is big," said Tom, crossing his arms, "but we have contacts in the financial sector who can help us trace those funds. People who owe us favors." Lisa agreed. "And I have friends in investigative journalism. They'd love a story like this. We can use the media to put pressure on the scammers." Amelia smiled, feeling hope grow. "That's great. The more allies we have, the stronger we'll be." The conversation continued, with Tom and Lisa offering their skills and resources. They devised a plan to obtain critical information, using their connections in the financial sector and the media. Amelia took notes, admiring Jack's former colleague's willingness to help. "We'll need solid evidence," said Tom, thinking out loud. "Something the media can use to attract public and authority attention." "We're working on it," said Amelia, showing them some of the documents Jack had obtained with Mark's help. "These are the first pieces of the puzzle. We'll need more, but we already have a strong foundation." Lisa examined the documents, her look becoming determined. "We can get more. I know people who can access confidential records, and if we need more witnesses, we can find them." Jack looked relieved and grateful. "Thank you, Tom and Lisa. I don't know what I'd do without you." "We're in this together," said Tom, placing a hand on Jack's shoulder. "We'll make sure these scammers pay for what they did." Lisa smiled, her face illuminated by the sunset light. "And we'll bring justice not just for you, Jack, but for everyone who was harmed by these criminals." With the plan laid out and new allies by their side, Jack and Amelia felt more confident than ever. They knew the journey would be tough, but with Tom and Lisa at their side, victory seemed a bit closer. As the sun disappeared on the horizon, they bid farewell to Tom and Lisa, promising to meet again soon to discuss the next steps. Amelia and Jack walked back through the park, feeling the strength of their alliance grow. "We're making progress," said Jack, squeezing Amelia's hand. "Each step brings us closer to justice." Amelia smiled, feeling inspired by Jack's determination. "And we won't stop until we get there. Together we're unstoppable." The frenetic pace of Los Angeles contrasted with the calm determination of Amelia and Jack. They had set up a small headquarters in Amelia's modest apartment, where walls covered with maps, charts, and notes revealed the complexity of the ongoing investigation. That afternoon, the atmosphere was particularly tense. Amelia typed furiously on her laptop while Jack, on the phone, talked with Mark, the private investigator. "Mark, we need more details on the transactions you mentioned," said Jack, his voice grave. "There has to be a way to link those numbers to the scammers." On the other end of the line, Mark promised to do his best, while Jack hung up and turned to Amelia. "Mark is tracking some suspicious bank transfers. He thinks he can get more information within the next 48 hours. Amelia nodded, her eyes fixed on the laptop screen. "And I managed to access some old financial records of the shell companies. There are many holes in these accounts, but we need something more concrete." Suddenly, Amelia's phone rang. It was David, the lawyer. She answered immediately, putting him on speaker so Jack could also hear. "Amelia, Jack, I got some documents that might be useful," said David. "They're internal records of the shell companies showing inconsistent cash flows. We need to tie this directly to the scammers." Jack leaned closer to the phone. "That's great, David. Can we use these records to pressure someone to talk?" "Possibly," David replied. "But we need irrefutable proof to connect everything. And I have an idea of where we can get it. There's an accountant, a former employee of these companies, who might have crucial information. His name is Henry Saunders." Amelia frowned, noting the name. "And where do we find Henry Saunders?" "He lives in a small town outside Los Angeles," said David. "I can arrange a meeting, but he's a cautious man. We need to make sure he feels safe to talk." Jack nodded, his determination growing. "We'll go to him. If he has the information we need, this could change everything." The next morning, Amelia and Jack hit the road, driving in concentrated silence to the small town where Henry Saunders lived. Upon arriving, they found a quiet community, far from the hustle and bustle of the big city. They found Henry in a local coffee shop. He was a middle-aged man with gray hair and a tired expression. When Amelia and Jack introduced themselves, he invited them to sit down. "Henry, we know you worked for the shell companies involved in the financial scam," Amelia began, her voice soft but firm. "We need your help to expose these people." Henry looked at the two, fear evident in his eyes. "You don't understand. These people are dangerous. They have power and influence. If I talk, I might become a target." Jack leaned forward, his eyes meeting Henry's. We understand the risk, Henry, but we have proof and a lawyer willing to help. We need someone who can connect all the dots. Without you, many people will continue to suffer. Henry sighed deeply, his shoulders relaxing a bit. I have some documents, records of transactions and internal communications that were never revealed. If this helps to bring them down, I'm willing to take the risk. Amelia smiled, relieved. This could be the missing piece. We'll make sure you're safe and that these documents are used to bring justice. Back in the car, Jack held Amelia's hand, his eyes shining with renewed hope. We're getting closer, Amelia. Closer every day. Amelia squeezed his hand, feeling the same burning determination. And we won't stop until every one of them pays for what they did. The air was tense in the small meeting room at David's office. Amelia, Jack, Mark, Tom, and Lisa were all gathered, reviewing the documents Henry Saunders had provided. The evidence was damning, but with each new discovery, the sense of imminent danger only increased. These documents are pure gold, said David, pushing his glasses up his nose while examining one of the papers. We have enough evidence to take down several key figures. But this also means we're treading on extremely dangerous ground. We need to be strategic, said Lisa, her eyes scanning the room. These scammers won't just accept being exposed. They will fight back, and we need to be ready. Mark, the private investigator, nodded in agreement. I've received some troubling information in recent days. It seems they're aware something is happening. Some of my sources have started disappearing. Amelia felt a chill run down her spine. What do you mean by disappearing? Literally disappearing, said Mark, his voice grave. They vanish without a trace. Phones disconnected, houses abandoned. They know we're after them, and they're trying to eliminate any threat. Jack clenched his fists, his frustration evident. We need to continue, but with much more caution. Every step must be calculated. Tom leaned forward, his eyes filled with concern. What if they come after us? We're putting everyone at risk. David took a deep breath. We need protection. I'll contact some trusted authorities to see if we can get some sort of protection for all of us. As the meeting continued, each team member outlined plans to ensure their safety and the investigation's continuity. They knew they were dealing with powerful and ruthless people, and every wrong move could be fatal. That night, as Amelia returned home, she felt a mix of fear and determination. She knew they were close to something big, but the growing sense of danger was undeniable. As she entered her apartment, she received a text message from Jack. We need to meet. Something urgent. Her heart raced. Within minutes, she was at the cafe where they usually met. Jack was already there, his expression serious. Amelia, I think we're being followed, he said, looking around cautiously. I noticed a suspicious car when I left the meeting. Amelia swallowed hard. What are we going to do? We'll change our patterns, said Jack. We can't meet in the same places all the time. We need to use more encrypted communication and avoid any predictable movements. Amelia nodded, feeling the weight of the situation. And the documents? We need to make sure they're safe. David is taking care of that, Jack replied. He'll hide them in a secure location, out of the scammer's reach. In the following days, the tension increased. Amelia, Jack, and the team constantly changed their routines, always on high alert. But the danger wasn't just lurking. It was getting closer. One night, while Amelia was at home reviewing some documents, she heard a strange noise. Her eyes widened and her heart raced. Walking slowly to the window, she saw a car parked across the street, its headlights off but its presence clearly noticeable. She grabbed her phone and called Jack. Jack, there's a suspicious car outside my house. Get out of there now, said Jack, his voice urgent. I'll meet you at the corner. Don't come back until we're sure it's safe. Amelia packed a backpack with important documents and quickly left through the back door, her heart pounding. As she ran down the street, she saw Jack waiting for her, his face tense. Let's go somewhere safe, he said, taking her hand. They ran to a dark alley, blending into the shadows. Jack led her to a small, off-the-radar hotel where they could hide for a while. "We need to stay out of sight," said Jack, holding Amelia's hands. "We're getting close, but they know it. We need to be ready for anything." Amelia looked at him, feeling the gravity of the situation. "We'll make it, Jack. We have to. We can't let these criminals win." The rain beat against the windows of the small hotel room where Amelia and Jack were hiding. The tension in the air was palpable, and they knew the next phase of their mission would be the most dangerous yet. Jack's phone vibrated, breaking the silence. It was a message from Tom. "We need to meet. We have a new lead." They met in an abandoned warehouse on the city's outskirts, a location chosen for its discretion. Tom and Lisa were waiting, and the expression on their faces indicated that the news was not good. "We discovered something important," said Tom, looking directly at Jack and Amelia. "The scammers are closer than we thought, and there's more. Someone in our circle is passing information to them." Amelia felt a chill down her spine. "Someone is betraying us? Who could it be?" Lisa sighed, visibly shaken. "We don't know yet, but we have reasons to believe that the leaked information came from someone with direct access to our plans." Jack clenched his fists, anger boiling just beneath the surface. "That explains how they're always one step ahead. We need to find out who the traitor is, and fast." David arrived shortly after, carrying a folder of documents. "I have good and bad news. The good news: we got warrants to investigate the shell companies. The bad news: there's movement to cover tracks, and if we don't act quickly, we'll lose our chance." Amelia looked at David, the determination in her eyes stronger than ever. "So what's the plan?" David opened the folder and spread the documents on an improvised table. "We'll split our forces. Tom and Lisa, you'll continue investigating the companies. Jack, Amelia, and I will confront one of the main suspects. He's an old friend of Jack's, someone who might be more deeply involved than we thought." Jack frowned, distress growing. "Who?" David answered cautiously. "Michael. He was very close to you at the time of the scam. Recently, we found records linking him to some suspicious transactions." The revelation hit Jack hard. Michael was one of his most trusted friends. The idea that he could be involved was devastating. "Michael? I can't believe this." "I know it's hard, Jack," said David with empathy, "but we need answers. And fast." They carefully planned the confrontation. Amelia, Jack, and David would meet Michael in a public place to ensure safety. Tom and Lisa would continue tracking other leads and watching the scammers' movements. Hours later, they were in a busy cafe. Michael arrived, looking nervous but unaware that something was wrong. When he sat down, Jack went straight to the point. "Michael, we need to talk," said Jack, his eyes fixed on his friend. Michael hesitated but nodded. "Of course, Jack. What's going on?" David placed an envelope with documents on the table. "We need to know your connection to these transactions. The evidence points to you." Michael's face paled. I don't know what you're talking about." Amelia watched closely, looking for any sign of deceit. "Michael, if you're involved in this, we need you to tell the truth now. We're all in danger." The pressure of the moment was too much for Michael. He sighed, running his hands through his hair. Yes, I knew some things, but I'm not directly involved. I was forced to collaborate. They threatened my family, Jack." Jack felt a mix of anger and compassion. "Why didn't you tell me? We could have helped." "I was scared," said Michael, his voice trembling. "They're powerful, Jack. I didn't know what to do." David intervened. "Michael, we need your help to bring them down. You have information that could be crucial." Michael nodded, defeated. "I'll help, but you need to protect my family." Jack placed a hand on Michael's shoulder. "We'll take care of it, but we need everything you know." As Michael began to reveal more details, Amelia recorded every word. Knowing this was the piece that was missing to complete the puzzle, he provided specific details about the transactions, secret meetings, and methods used to launder the money. Hours later, with Michael's testimony recorded and documented, the group gathered again at David's office. The lawyer reviewed the notes, a satisfied expression on his face. "This is more than enough," said David. "We have the testimony of a key witness and the documents to corroborate it. We can take this to the authorities tomorrow." Jack sighed with relief, squeezing Amelia's hand. "We're almost there. Finally, we'll get justice." Amelia smiled, feeling a wave of hope. "And not just for you, Jack. For everyone who was hurt by these criminals." That night, as the city slept, Amelia and Jack knew they were about to turn the tide. The evidence was gathered, the testimonies ready, and everyone's determination was unwavering. They were about to confront the scammers head-on, armed with truth and justice as their most powerful weapons. The next morning dawned with a palpable air of tension. Amelia, Jack, David, Tom, Lisa, and Mark were gathered in David's office, ready to take the next step. The evidence was organized into carefully labeled folders, and Richard's testimony was recorded and transcribed. "Let's do this," said David, placing the last folder in his briefcase. "We're taking all this to the authorities. We need them to issue arrest warrants and protect our witnesses." Everyone agreed, feeling the gravity of the moment. They left the office as a group, each aware of the mission's importance and danger. Jack and Amelia walked together side by side, their hands clasped. On the way to the Department of Justice, Amelia received a text message. She frowned as she read the contents. "It's a message from an unknown number. It says to stop or there will be consequences." Jack looked at her, the worry evident in his eyes. "They're threatening us. We knew this could happen. We need to keep going," said Amelia, determined. "We can't let ourselves be intimidated now." They arrived at the Department of Justice and were received by a trusted federal agent that David had contacted. The agent, a serious man with a stern appearance named Roberts, quickly reviewed the evidence. "This is enough to issue immediate arrest warrants," said Roberts. "We'll act quickly, but I need all of you to be safe. We know these criminals are dangerous and might try something drastic." While Roberts organized the operation, Amelia and Jack were escorted to a safe location, a government-provided safe house. The place was modest but well protected, and it was prepared to shelter witnesses in high-risk situations. Hours passed in tense silence, each minute dragging on as they awaited news. Finally, the phone rang. It was Roberts. "We've arrested the main suspects," he said, his voice firm. But there was a problem. During the arrests, one of the scammers mentioned someone very close to you is involved. Someone who knew all the details. Amelia felt the ground fall out from under her feet. "What do you mean by very close?" Roberts hesitated before answering. "We received information that one of the people in your inner circle is directly involved in the scheme. We're investigating further." Jack stood beside Amelia, his face pale with shock. Someone we trusted betrayed us. As they processed this new information, a deep sense of betrayal settled over the group. Suspicions began to arise, each looking at the other with distrust. It was then that Tom, who had been quiet until that moment, stepped forward. I need to confess something." Everyone turned to him, the air thick with anticipation and fear. "What do you mean, Tom?" asked Amelia, her voice trembling. Tom sighed, guilt evident on his face. "I was threatened. They forced me to pass information. They said they'd hurt my family if I didn't cooperate." The revelation hit like a bomb. Jack stepped forward, his face contorted with anger and pain. "How could you, Tom? We trusted you." Tom raised his hands, pleading for understanding. "I had no choice. I tried to protect you all as best as I could, but they were ruthless." Amelia felt tears of frustration and sadness stream down her face. "Tom, we could have helped. Now we have to deal with the consequences." David, trying to maintain calm, placed a hand on Tom's shoulder. "We'll deal with this legally. Tom, if you fully cooperate now, maybe we can mitigate your situation." As night fell, the team remained in a state of shock and disbelief. Tom's betrayal was a deep blow, but they knew they had to unite more than ever. Amelia, Jack, and the rest of the group vowed to continue the fight for justice despite the wounds opened by betrayal. On that dark night, under the protection of the safe house, they reworked their plans. Now, more than ever, they were determined to see the scammers pay for their crimes. They knew the road ahead would be tough, but they were ready to face it together, healing wounds and strengthening their bonds of trust. Dawn brought with it an electric tension. Amelia, Jack, David, Lisa, and Mark were gathered in the improvised office of the safe house. Tom's betrayal still lingered over them, but there was no time to grieve. The final battle was in sight, and they needed to be prepared. Roberts, the federal agent, entered the room with a serious expression. The warrants have been executed, but the main leaders of the scam escaped. We know where they are, but it will require a coordinated and quick action. We're ready, said Jack, determination shining in his eyes. Let's end this once and for all. David spread a map of the city over the table, marking the critical points where the scammers might be hiding. We have 3 main locations, he explained. An abandoned warehouse at the port, a storage facility downtown, and an isolated house in the hills. Let's divide our efforts, suggested Amelia. Roberts and his team will handle the warehouse. Lisa and Mark will go to the port. Jack and I will go to the house in the hills. Everyone agreed with the plan, aware of the risks. Armed with evidence and the support of the authorities, they prepared for the final confrontation. Jack and Amelia drove in silence to the hills. The car snaked through winding roads as the sun rose, painting the sky in orange and gold. The isolated house finally appeared in the distance, an imposing structure surrounded by trees. We're almost there, said Jack, holding Amelia's hand. Remember, we need to be quick and decisive. They parked the car at a safe distance and proceeded on foot, moving stealthily among the trees. As they approached the house, they could see armed men standing guard. It was clear the scammers were prepared for anything. Amelia took a deep breath, feeling the weight of the moment. We need to create a distraction, she whispered. I'll go around the house and try to draw their attention to the opposite side. You go in while I do that. Jack hesitated, worry evident in his eyes. Be careful, Amelia. She smiled, trying to convey a confidence she didn't fully feel. We've made it this far, Jack. Let's finish this together. As Amelia moved quietly along the side of the house, Jack prepared to break in. Amelia found a spot where she could see the guards and began making noise, throwing rocks and breaking branches. The guards turned, going to investigate the sound. Seizing the distraction, Jack slipped through the side entrance. The house was dark and silent, except for the distant steps of the guards. Moving carefully, he searched the rooms looking for the scam leaders. Finally, he found an office upstairs. There, sitting around a table, were 2 men Jack recognized immediately. They were the brains behind the entire operation. Wasting no time, Jack pulled out the camera he had brought to record the encounter. It's over, he said, his voice firm, making the men turn in shock. You're surrounded. I have everything documented. The evidence, the testimonies. The police are on their way. The men tried to react, but Jack was faster, immobilizing one of them while the other tried to escape. However, the door suddenly opened and Amelia entered, pointing a gun she had found in the house. Don't move, she said, her voice icy. It's the end of the line for you. Minutes later, Roberts and his team arrived, arresting the scammers and ensuring all the evidence was collected. Jack and Amelia allowed themselves a sigh of relief, knowing the battle was finally over. As the sun set, they sat on the house's steps, exhausted but victorious. We did it, said Amelia, looking at Jack with a tired smile. Yes, we did, Jack replied, squeezing her hand. And we did it together. The courtroom was packed. Sunlight streamed through the large windows, illuminating the room with an almost surreal clarity. Amelia and Jack sat side by side, their hands intertwined in a silent gesture of mutual support. They had faced unimaginable challenges to get here, and now the moment of truth had arrived. David, the lawyer, stood at the front of the room, organizing his papers and preparing for the trial's start. The tension in the air was palpable, each breath held, each movement cautious. The defendants, including the scam leaders, sat on the defendant's bench, their expressions nervous and frustrated. The judge entered the room and everyone stood up. With a firm gesture, he ordered them to sit, and the trial began. David stood up and made his opening statement, detailing the fraudulent scheme and the devastating impact it had on countless lives, including Jack's. The first witnesses were called, each one strengthening the case against the scammers. Michael and Richard, both cooperating with the investigation, provided crucial testimonies. Their voices trembled slightly, but the truth they shared was undeniable and powerful. When it was Amelia's turn to testify, she stood up, walking with determination to the witness stand. Jack watched her with pride and admiration. She spoke about her initial discovery of Jack, the difficulties they faced together, and the strength and resilience they found in each other. "These criminals destroyed lives," said Amelia, her voice firm and clear. "But through pain and suffering we found a strength we never knew we had. We can't undo the past, but we can ensure justice is served and no one else suffers at the hands of these scammers." When Jack took the witness stand, the room fell into absolute silence. He spoke with raw honesty about his fall from success to ruin and the devastating impact of the scam on his life. But he also spoke about the hope he found, not only in Amelia but also in everyone who joined his cause. "This trial is not just about recovering lost money," said Jack, looking directly at the defendants. "It's about justice. It's about ensuring those who use their power to harm others are held accountable for their actions. And it's about showing that no matter how dark the night, there is always a way to the light." The trial lasted for days, each moment filled with emotion and expectation. Finally, the moment of the jury's deliberation arrived. The hours passed slowly, each tick of the clock echoing in the waiting room where everyone awaited the verdict. When the jury returned, the tension was unbearable. The judge called for silence, and the jury foreman stood up. "We, the jury, find the defendants guilty on all charges." The room erupted in murmurs of relief and contained celebration. Amelia and Jack embraced, tears of relief and joy streaming down their faces. David shook their hands, a satisfied smile on his face. "We did it," said David. "Finally, justice has been served." The defendants were escorted out of the room, their expressions of defeat contrasting with the clear victory of justice. Jack and Amelia felt an immense weight lift off their shoulders. They had faced the worst and emerged victorious. Later that day, they met with the rest of the team at a small cafe to celebrate. Laughter and conversations flowed freely, a stark contrast to the moments of tension they had faced together. Michael and Richard were there, more relieved than ever, knowing their cooperation had made a difference. Jack raised his glass, making a toast to everyone who fought for justice, who didn't give up even when everything seemed lost. This is just the beginning of a new chapter, one where truth prevails and where we can finally start rebuilding our lives. Amelia smiled, feeling a wave of hope and gratitude. "And to new beginnings," she added, toasting with friends. That night, as they walked home under a starry sky, Amelia and Jack reflected on the journey they had taken. There were scars, yes, but there was also new strength and new determination. They had faced the worst together and emerged stronger. "We're finally free," said Jack, looking at Amelia with a soft smile. "And ready for whatever comes next," she replied, squeezing his hand. The soft morning light filtered through the window of Amelia and Jack's new apartment. It was a modest place, but for them it signified a new beginning. The walls were adorned with photos that captured moments of their journey, not just those of pain and struggle, but also those of resilience and victory. Jack was in the kitchen making coffee while Amelia looked out the window, reflecting on what had happened. The familiar sound of coffee brewing brought a smile to her face. It was a symbol of normalcy, something they had fought so hard to achieve. "Good morning," said Jack, entering the room with 2 steaming cups. He handed one to Amelia, who thanked him with a warm smile. "Good morning," she replied, taking a sip and sighing with contentment. "You know, there's something incredibly satisfying about starting the day with a simple cup of coffee." Jack smiled and nodded. "It's a symbol of everything we went through, a reminder that despite everything, we managed to find our way back to a normal life." As they sat together on the couch, they began discussing their plans for the future. Jack had received offers from several companies interested in his knowledge and experience, while Amelia was thinking about resuming her urban revitalization project, now with a whole new perspective. "I've been thinking," said Amelia, looking at Jack. "What if we started a foundation? Something that helps other victims of financial scams get back on their feet. We have the experience and now the right contacts to make a difference." Jack considered the idea, his eyes shining with enthusiasm. "That's an excellent idea. We can use our story to inspire and help others, and make sure no one else goes through what we did." They spent the entire morning discussing the details, outlining plans and dreaming of the possibilities. Each idea seemed to bring a new layer of hope and purpose to their lives. Later that day, they decided to take a walk in the park. The fresh breeze and the sound of leaves rustling in the wind brought a sense of peace. As they walked hand in hand, they ran into Mark and Lisa sitting on a bench, chatting animatedly. "Hey, you too," called Jack, waving. Mark and Lisa smiled and stood up to greet them. "What a nice coincidence," said Lisa. "We were just talking about how life has been since the trial." "We're thinking of starting a foundation," said Amelia, her eyes shining with enthusiasm. "Something to help other victims of financial scams." "That's amazing," replied Mark. "You can count on us for anything you need. We have a lot of contacts that could be useful." Lisa agreed. "And I can help spread the word about the foundation through the media. I'm sure many would be interested in your story." The conversation continued, full of ideas and promises of collaboration. They knew that together, they could make a real difference in the world, not just as survivors but as agents of change. That night, back at the apartment, Amelia and Jack sat on the balcony, looking at the city lights. The feeling of accomplishment and hope was palpable. "We did it, Jack," said Amelia, resting her head on his shoulder. "We turned our pain into something positive, and now we can help others do the same." Jack gently kissed her head. "Yes, we did. And this is just the beginning. There's so much more to come." Looking to the future, they knew that although the road had been long and difficult, they had found a new purpose. A purpose that not only united them but now motivated them to help others find their way. As the stars began to shine in the night sky, Amelia and Jack felt a sense of peace and satisfaction. They were ready for the next chapter of their lives, knowing that together, they could face anything, and that, through their foundation, they could bring light and hope to many others who were still in the dark. The foundation created by Amelia and Jack, New Horizons, quickly became a beacon of hope for many people. Within a few months, the organization gained traction, helping numerous victims of financial scams get back on their feet. The foundation's headquarters, a revitalized old building in the heart of the city, was always buzzing with activity and renewed energy. That morning, Amelia was organizing a fundraising event, while Jack reviewed the final details of the foundation's new legal assistance program. The walls were adorned with photos of people who had been helped by New Horizons, each face a story of overcoming and resilience. "Everything's almost ready," said Amelia, checking the guest list. "I have a good feeling about this, Jack. We're going to raise enough funds to expand our programs." Jack smiled, watching Amelia's passion and determination. "I'm sure we will. You've turned this idea into something incredible, and now we're making a difference." As the guests arrived, the atmosphere was one of celebration and solidarity. Community leaders, local business owners, and people who had been helped by the foundation were all present, sharing their stories and supporting the cause. Amelia stepped onto the stage holding a microphone. "Welcome, everyone. Today we celebrate not only the resources we're raising, but also the courage and determination of every person whose life has been transformed. The New Horizons Foundation is about new beginnings and second chances." Applause echoed through the room as Amelia continued. "Each of you here today has contributed to making this dream a reality, and together, we can continue to create a future where no one has to face darkness alone." Jack watched with pride as Amelia spoke, remembering the journey they had taken. When she finished, he joined her on stage, holding her hand. "I want to thank everyone for being here," said Jack. "And I want to especially thank Amelia, whose vision and determination brought us here. This is just the beginning. Together we can achieve much more. After the event, while everyone socialized and celebrated, Amelia and Jack retreated to a small room in the back, needing a moment of silence. They sat on a couch, exhausted but happy. "It was a success," said Amelia, resting her head on Jack's shoulder. "We're really making a difference." "Yes, we are," replied Jack, kissing her forehead. "And it's all thanks to you. Your vision, your passion. You turned pain into something positive." Amelia smiled, feeling a wave of gratitude. "I couldn't have done it without you, Jack. We're in this together. And together we can face anything." In the following months, the foundation continued to grow. New programs were launched, more people were helped, and the message of hope and resilience spread even further. Amelia and Jack became inspiring figures in the community, a living example that with determination and support, it is possible to overcome even the toughest challenges. One day, while walking through the park where it all began, Amelia stopped and looked at Jack. "Do you remember when we first met here? Everything seemed so uncertain." Jack smiled, remembering that moment. "Yes, I remember. Who would have thought we'd be here today, with a foundation that's changing lives?" "It's been an incredible journey," said Amelia, holding Jack's hand. "And it's just beginning." They continued walking, hand in hand, ready to face the future together. They knew that, regardless of the challenges that arose, they had each other and a mission that guided them. And that, for them, was all they needed. With the sunlight filtering through the trees, Amelia and Jack walked toward a future full of hope and possibilities, confident that they were making a difference and that, together, they could conquer anything. Leave your opinion about this incredible story of overcoming challenges in the comments. And if you were as moved as we were, don't forget to leave a like and subscribe to the channel so you don't miss any of our future stories full of drama and emotion.